All right, let's jump right into it. We're gonna be doing a driving tour right here in Chapin, South Carolina, which is known as the capital of Lake Murray. It's found on the outskirts of Lexington, Irmo, and Columbia. And we're actually gonna drive through downtown Chapin and head to check out one of the brand new neighborhoods in the area. So you can hopefully get an idea of what it's like living in Chapin, as well as what current pricing is in some of the new neighborhoods. And to give you an idea of where we got started, for those not familiar, we're actually on a road called Columbia Avenue, and we just passed Chapin High School on the left. And on the right across from was a brand new shopping center they recently added. But this is one of the main roads into Chapin, specifically coming off I-26, the interstate, which for reference is about a mile behind us. They actually recently announced that they're gonna be widening this road that I'm driving down coming into downtown. There's a lot of construction already started back by the interstate because of the own interstate construction as well. And it would honestly be completely different from the day I made this just because of construction going on. So we started right where, if you're not familiar, Brighton Industrial Park is. Now, this is actually a Lexington County industrial park that they built and have been trying to attract different business to the area. There really isn't a ton in there quite at this point, but it's hopes that it'll grow over time and bring new businesses to the Chapin area. But either way, as we head in here, I'm actually gonna keep going straight to give you a better perspective of the area. But if you were to turn left back where we stopped, it would actually cut through a part of downtown Chapin to the road we're eventually gonna drive down. But again, I want to give you a little bit more perspective of the areas. So when we come up here around this corner, we're gonna cross some train tracks and actually turn left onto what is called Chapin Road. And then we'll drive up through downtown Chapin. And for those of your first time watching and want a little more information about Chapin, again, for those not familiar, so Columbia is the capital of South Carolina, located centrally in the state. Just outside of Columbia, you do have Lake Murray, the 50,000 acre play place that is the heart of the Midlands. On the south side of the lake, you have the suburbs and town of Lexington. If you head up around the east side of the lake, over the dam, you're gonna pass into Irmo, Ballantyne, and eventually you're gonna hit Chapin, which is where we are right now, actually downtown Chapin. While it is a smaller town, you will see some local restaurants around, places like Zesto, Zorba's, and we passed earlier behind us would have been Farm Boys, Chop House of Chapin, Bacon, Higher Ground, and a ton more. You have your main shopping centers here in this area as well. You're gonna have a Publix, you're gonna have what used to be a Bi-Lo and they convert it into a Lowe's Food. As well, you have some fast food places. Again, you have local restaurants that are really good in the area and some coffee shops, just a ton of different things right here in the downtown area. Now, this, as you can see, is a relatively small town. I always tell people, to me, coming from California, it feels like a mountain town, simply because you have your downtown and you have these 2-lane roads that kind of wind down to where all the houses and the neighborhoods are, as well as downtown outside the grocery stores. Again, it's a lot of local stuff. It's your local restaurants, local shopping. You don't have per se those chain stores like Lowe's Home Improvement, Home Depot. You have your local Ace Hardware, that kind of concept, right? That's what you get here in Chapin. So really small town feel. We're gonna be turning right here. And again, if you turn left, it would take you back to where I said, again, if you turn left, it would get you to this spot. Just again, want to give you a little perspective, but we turned onto a street called Lexington Avenue and eventually turned into Old Lexington Highway. If we continue straight, eventually that road turns into Dutch Fork Road and will bring you back into Ballantyne and Irmo. If you watch my video from a couple years ago back, driving from Lexington to Chapin, you'd be familiar with that drive. And to give you an idea, that's actually one of the other ways to get down to the neighborhood we're going. If you're coming from Irmo or Columbia area, there's actually an exit prior, Broad River. It's a little shortcut back versus driving through downtown. It's honestly one of the weirdest on-ramps I've ever been on in my life. You literally get back on the on-ramp to turn down to the interstate to road that leads you back to Dutch Fork Road. Confusing. You'll think you made a wrong turn. They're actually redoing this off-ramp, so in the future this may not be the case, but those that have been here know what I'm talking about. But so either way, it's another reason I bring that up is because, as I said, Chapin is relatively small town and you don't have a lot of those chain stores. So those that do like big home stores, the malls, Home Depot, Lowe's, Costco, if you head back that way about 15 miles, it'll actually drop you right into the Harbison and Irmo area if you're familiar. And of course, you have just about every chain store you can think of, as well as right there our local Costco. So again, you have that small town feel, but without being way too far out. I guess that's truly perspective of what too far out is, but you know what I mean by that. And either way, on the right here, we're actually passing a brand new great southern neighborhood, Boykin Hills. This neighborhood comes in with the pricing in the high 200s to high 300s. This isn't the neighborhood we're gonna be touring, but just wanted to point it out while we're in the area. And there's some other neighborhoods I'll point out as well as we get further down, but I do want to hit on some other neighborhoods that we will not pass in this video, but I get asked about a lot. Probably the biggest is Timberlake on the Lake. So to give you an idea, when we were in downtown Chapin and we made a left after the train tracks, if you think back, if you were to continue straight about 10 to 12 minutes down, it will literally dead end right there at Timberlake. For those not familiar, this is the golf course on Lake Murray with the country club, as well as you have the marina. Again, I get a lot of questions because there's a lot of there's smaller neighborhoods within the neighborhood of Timberlake to hopefully give you a better perspective where it is. I dove into it a little bit more on my lake series if you want to learn more about that neighborhood. But either way, and we're about to pass Crooked Creek Park here in Chapin. And they do have a lot of rec fields, including baseball, soccer, and so much more. And you often hear people talk about Crooked Creek Park, and that's where it is right here. A little more information about the area, as mentioned, zoned for the award-winning Lexington Richland 5 School District. We're passing the intermediate school, and the elementary school is actually right behind that. And if you recall earlier, as I said, we passed Chapin High School. Let me give you a little more information about Chapin itself so you understand when I talk about it. So the population Chapin comes in at 1,841 per the 2021 census, and that's made up of 1.99 square miles. Now, of course, this is just a quote-unquote town, as the zip code itself, 29036, spreads out further. So the zip code of Chapin itself came in at 20,923. It is mostly a part of Lexington County. Not to confuse you more, but there is a section on the drive back towards Irmo that lands in Richland County. Is the reason the school district is known as the Lexington Richland 5 School District, because it splits county lines. Again, and I always tell people that road we turned right off of in downtown Chapin that I said eventually turned into Dutch Fork, I'll tell you, I feel like when they turn that into a 4-lane road, the floodgates of Chapin truly open and take off quite a bit more. That's just my perspective, because often, again, people like the area and the feel that it's a small town, but the downfall with that is it's a small town infrastructure. And so those that just don't feel like driving these 2-lane roads back home or to go to major shopping centers often will get turned off by the area. That's why I say once that becomes a 4-lane highway, a lot of that goes away, but then it won't feel like a small town anymore, of course. Now, of course, you can take the interstate back, but not everybody wants to drive back to the interstate in order to run to Costco or run to the bigger shopping centers. Again, that's just kind of my 2 cents and what I hear from people that don't like Chapin. But again, I've helped a ton of people buy out here in Chapin for numerous reasons. Again, a lot of people do like that small town feel and don't want to be in the hustle and bustle of some of the suburbs and areas like Lexington per se. But as well, of course, proximity to the lake, which we'll talk about here as we get closer to the neighborhood. We're actually gonna be passing one of the first phases of the neighborhood on the left here. But for those familiar, it's gonna actually be a different style of home than this phase was. So if you're familiar, if you've caught eye of it, just know that's gonna be a little bit different, but I'll dive into that when we get to the neighborhood. But again, one of the big things people like about Chapin is the proximity to the lake. And the neighborhood that we're gonna be touring, I'll dive into it more, but it does have proximity to the lake, which is one of the perks of it. So we're gonna be coming up here in just a little bit to a stop sign. And if you head straight, that'll actually take you to another neighborhood I've made videos about, Palmetto Shores. And in that neighborhood, they do have lake access in the neighborhood. But if we actually make a right at the stop sign coming up, first it'll take you to another neighborhood I've done a tour in the past, Wessinger Farms. And the perk to that neighborhood and the one we're touring today, if you keep going down Wessinger, about a mile from the stop sign we're pulling up to, you're actually gonna run into a public entrance to the lake where you can load your boat, unload your boat, and head out for the day. Now, the good thing about this, compared to, if you watched some of my other videos, is this boat ramp is actually free. There's no guard year round. So you can essentially come and drop your boat off any day of the week and head on the lake. So obviously that's a perk to a lot of these neighborhoods over here. You don't have lake access in your neighborhood, free public access is just right around the corner. Now, we did pass the initial phase of this neighborhood earlier, as I pointed out, And as well, there's actually going to be a third phase of this neighborhood that is yet to get started. It's going to be quite a big neighborhood once it's completed, and we're going to be making a left up here and turning towards the neighborhood. And you may already catch some sight already of some of the land that they're clearing for this neighborhood. Again, I'm making this video early in because a lot of times neighborhoods are already going along and people feel like they missed out. So that's why I wanted to get this one as it just launched, because they literally just did their launch of it. But if you're familiar when I say the name of this neighborhood as we pull up, they actually switched part of, again, the style of home to accommodate a price point that people were more looking for than the prior section, because they were larger homes. Houses had a lot more upgrades and things like that, but it came with a higher price ticket. And so they listened to people. You know, people wanted to keep a certain budget, but still be close to the lake, and that's what they did. So we'll dive into that more as we pull into the neighborhood here in just a second. All right, welcome to Chapin Place. As prior mentioned, I do not work for the builder or developer. I'm an independent agent right here in the Midlands of South Carolina. However, I make videos like these to teach you about the area to see if it's right for you. So if this neighborhood or any other piques your interest, please don't hesitate to reach out. But either way, let's talk about Chapin Place being built by Stanley Martin Homes. This phase itself will have approximately 176 homes, and the next phase will be close in size and will actually house the community pool and clubhouse. So again, getting a little ahead of myself here, we'll have those amenities, but they'll be in the next phase. So just keep that in mind with that access to the amenity a couple years before you see that. Floor plans you're gonna see in this neighborhood may be familiar with. Ranch floor plans such as the Everest, the Wallace, and the Hazelwood, as well as two-story larger homes such as the Pinewood and the popular Shiloh floor plan. The plans range from 2-bedroom, 2-bath up to 5-bedroom, 4-bath. The Shiloh floor plan from 1,500 square feet up to 3,600 square feet. Now, as prior mentioned in other videos, at this point, Stanley Martin is not allowing quote-unquote build jobs. They're doing what they call their smart select homes. And what does that mean? Essentially means all the options have been chosen, and the house is going to be further along when you write a contract, getting you in your house sooner. But there'll be no changes made to any of the options selected. At least that's what I'm being told at this point. Now, one question that always gets asked, lot size. So lot size will vary in this neighborhood, but again, one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up early on, because there definitely are some very large lots in this neighborhood. So of course, if that house plan lands on one of those lots and you want to get in it, that's why I wanted to bring this neighborhood in early, as you can see, just getting kicked off. Now, pricing in this phase, and this is just release, so it comes in with a base price of $293,000 up to $373,000. Now, what does that mean, right? So base price can trick people a lot. Upgrades typically range from $30,000 to $60,000. For instance, I've been told there's a Shiloh being built that the base price at $373,000 again, this one will come in around $437,000, but it'll have a ton of upgrades, the covered porch in the back and those upgraded options inside the house and so much more. So hopefully that gives you a better idea of what pricing is gonna be right here in Chapin Place. And as you can see in the video, just off in the distance is going to be Lake Murray. One of the perks of Chapin Place is a short distance to that boat access on Lake Murray. Now, another question I get asked, most of these HOAs right around here do not allow you to park your boat in your driveway. There are a ton of storage units and places around the area where you can store your boat, but it is one thing that I do let people know, because it gets asked all the time. Most of these HOAs do not allow you to park your boat in your yard. If it can fit in your garage, by all means, put it in there.